Bullshit, bullshit. They feeding us this bullshit, bullshit. They feeding us bullshit. Why you feeding me this bullshit from Zechariah Sitchin? Worse than a Christian. Listen, you in the fifth dimension, missing. Word about a reptilian in. It came from a white boy, flying to my people like, it's a right boy. I'm here to kill a pseudoscience with a night boy. 65 million euro pyramids. Anunnaki claims you're a weirdo kid. Yet the people follow you like you're a hero kid. Looking for evidence, but I found zero, kid. I'm not a Hindu. I know what I've been through. You're reaching for chakras, but that's not us. Rise of the Kundalini. Sounds more like Houdini. Bullshit. They feeding us this bullshit. Bullshit. They feeding us this bullshit. Bullshit. They feeding us this bullshit. Bullshit. Why you feeding me this bullshit from Zechariah Sitchin? Worse than a Christian. Listen, you in the fifth dimension, missing. Word about a reptilian in. It came from a white boy, flying to my people like, it's a right boy. I'm here to kill a pseudoscience with a night boy.
The Marathon Story. It all began in Greece about 2,500 years ago in 490 BCE. A huge army from Persia sailed across the Asian Sea to conquer the powerful city of Athens in Greece. The fleet landed at Marathon, a small town about 40 kilometers from Athens. The Athenians took up a strong position on the hills surrounding the coast and waited to see what would happen. The 50,000 strong Persian army was about 5 times bigger than that of the Athenians. The Athenians decided to ask the city of Sparta for help. Sparta had the best army in Greece, and Persia was, after all, a common enemy. At that time, people communicated across cities, either by sending a messenger on horseback or by using a professional runner. Legends say that the Athenians chose one of their best runners, Pheidippides, to take an urgent message to Sparta, as the rocky and rough terrain was not very suited to horses. Pheidippides ran the 240 kilometers to Sparta.
Pheidippides starts his way back, deeply disappointed since Spartans couldn't depart right away. He was thinking that they might arrive too late to help. As he was crossing Mount Parthenio, he had a vision of the god Pan. Pan was the god of shepherds and flocks. He had hindquarters and goat horns. According to ancient Greeks, he used to live in the Akkadian mountains. He was the son of Artemis, the messenger of the gods, and the wood nymph Dryope. She gave birth to a child with an appalling sight: goat's legs, pointed ears, 2 horns on his head, and even his face was covered with a dense beard. God Pan protested because there was no temple devoted to him in Athens. He told Pheidippides that the outnumbered Athenians would win the vast and well-armed Persian forces. He would help by creating an unbearable noise, panicking the Persian army. His request was that should his prophecy prove right, Athenians should build a magnificent temple devoted to him.
This is really scary.
In just 2 days, but in vain. Though Sparta wanted to help, they decided that they could not leave, for religious reasons, till it was full moon several days later. So poor Pheidippides ran all the way back with the disappointing news. The Athenians could not afford to wait for the Spartans. The Athenian general, Miltiades, came up with a clever plan. He divided his men into three groups: the center, the left, and the right wings. As per Miltiades' plan, the armies advanced on the Persians, and then the center wing pretended to fall back. When the Persian army rushed in after the center wing, the left and the right wings closed in. The Persians were defeated. They quickly returned to their ships and sailed away. Even the Athenians were a little surprised by their swift victory. They jumped up and down on the shore and cheered. But then they realized that the Persians might be going round the coast to Athens, and most of the Athenian army was at Marathon. They needed to get an urgent message to Athens so that the city would be prepared. So once more, Pheidippides was chosen to run the 40 kilometers to Athens to relay the news of the victory. He made it, but was so exhausted from running to Sparta and back, battling the Persians and then racing to Athens, that he collapsed after shouting, "Rejoice, we conquer," and died.
Nike is the goddess of victory in Greek mythology. Most successes of Athena would be justified by the fact that the goddess Nike was always by her side. In Roman mythology, the goddess Nike is known by the name of Victoria. She was worshipped by soldiers of the Roman legions, who begged for her in the battlefields. Her popularity was so vast that a statue of the goddess of victory had a prominent spot in the Roman Senate. When Rome adopted Christianity, the goddess of victory started to be worshipped as an angelic figure. In turn, the athletes of antiquity made sacrifices in honor of the goddess so that Nike could grant them victory and glory.
In 490 BC, a Greek messenger named Pheidippides ran from the Greek town of Marathon to the capital, Athens, to deliver a message that the Greek army had just beaten back the Persians. Now, the distance between those two towns is 26.2 miles, and that's the origin of the modern sporting event that we call the marathon. You might know that story. What they don't always tell you is that when he got to Athens after those 26.2 miles, Pheidippides died.
Deeper than I think anyone is really willing to face. You see, the truth is, I have nothing against Michael Jordan whatsoever on a personal level. He has absolutely nothing really to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how the Illuminati uses figures like Michael Jordan for their symbolic agenda. You see, Michael Jordan is just a pawn in the game. He is a puppet to the masters, the elite, the elders of the Illuminati, who use famous figures so that you will idolize and worship what they want you to worship. And that is their bull god. Their bull god of the Bible. So you can watch a number of my videos where I explain in detail about the fascination and the be called 23.
The Harvest Lord.
Thyrsus is, of course, it's the anise staff. It's the stalk of the anise plant, or the fennel stalk. It's a very abundant herb, a very potent and powerful healing herb, a tool of ancient esoteric alchemy, and a symbol of the fertility and the fecundity of nature itself, as Dionysus actually is. And of course, the symbolism of Dionysus is actually Jesus. Dionysus is a precursor and an exact epithet of Jesus. Jesus was literally, Jesus Christos was literally modeled after the archetypal mytheme of the slain harvest lord, the slain harvest god of wine and the agricultural season, which is why Jesus turns water into wine at the end of the season, which just as the sunlight grows the golden crops and then is harvested at the end of the season, and where the water that you use to water the water in the grapes then becomes fermented into wine, storing at the end of the season, at the end of the agricultural harvest, which is why Jesus was a farmer. Jesus is with the wheat and the tares and the crops and the harvest, and he's the reaper and the sower, because it's all about the crops of nature, and it's all about the cycles and the seasons that the sun goes through on its path on the hero's journey, or the path of the fool, throughout the annual year, throughout the annual season, throughout the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 houses of the year, which is exactly why it's Jesus and the central sun, the central hub, surrounded by the 12 apostles, the 12 posts of the annual year, the 12 months of the year, the 12 seasons. As Jesus goes through each of these houses, the sun goes through each of these houses and represents the archetype of the hero's journey, of the cycle of nature itself. So of course that's what Dionysus is, literally just a snapshot in time, just a singular archetype of this overarching mytheme of nature itself. And so this is of course why, all of these slain harvest lords, these slain archetypal agricultural harvest lords, which is exactly why literally comes from its predecessor as Osiris, who was also the agricultural grain fertility harvest lord, is a fertility harvest lord, just as in the Bible it says Jesus was also the Lord of the harvest, which comes from Dionysus, which comes from Osiris, who was also the agricultural fertility harvest lord of the season, who all of these slain lords, they all went to the underworld at the end of the season, where they were all slain, and then they died, and then they were resurrected, because it's all the ancient story of the sun and astrotheology, the cycle of the light of the world, the Son of God, which is why Osiris is literally the same exact depiction as the Fool of the Tarot, which comes from Osiris, because it's the path of the Fool, the path of the sun, which is the hero's journey throughout the annual season, the annual archetypal year, which is why Osiris goes into the tomb, and why the staff of Osiris is literally where the Thyrsus comes from. It comes from the pine cone staff of Osiris, which is the caduceus staff of the human anatomy, of the spinal column, which is exactly this pineal gland sits at the center of the cycle, which is literally the 0 point of the skull, which is literally the central sun of consciousness inside your head, which is literally represented by the pine cone. And this is why the pineal gland is surrounded by its 12 disciples, in other words, which are the 12 cranial nerves. And so this is literally why we have Jesus depicted, who sits directly at the top of the tree of life, of the Kabbalistic tree of life, which is this human central nervous and spinal system, the spinous system. And so that's why it's depicting the caduceus standing harmonic wave of the tree itself, the tree trunk itself, which is the axis mundi. Again, Christ sits atop the axis mundi, and that's why he's obviously surrounded by the central nervous system of the 12 cranial nerves. Oh yeah, and this reminds me again of back what we covered in Symbols of Power Part 2, or was it Part 3? I can't remember, but was the etymology of the pineal gland itself, the epiphysis cerebri, the epiphysis cerebri, which I like to pronounce the epiphysis cerebri, because the epiphysis, the epiphysis of the pineal gland is literally where the epiphany occurs. The epiphany is the realization, the self-realization, the apex, the pinnacle, the capstone, the absolute, the most high, the culmination of the experience, the illumination experience, the top, the utmost, the pinnacle. But so that's where you have the epiphany, the light bulb goes off, or goes on, should I say. And so that's the epiphany of the epiphysis cerebri, is the pineal gland is. And so of course this is where we get the epiphany of Christ. As an epiphany literally comes from Greek, meaning to reveal, which is literally, it's a revelation. It's the divine inspiration, the revelation, it's the rapture, it's the epiphany, it's the samadhi. Which is of course why the Epiphany of Christ is the Christian feast during Christmas season that celebrates the revelation of God incarnate as Jesus Christ, which is within you, is that you are the revelation. And I'm speaking allegorically here, I'm not like a fundamentalist Christian perspective, but this is the underlying truth, the underlying actual science, the physical anatomy, the physiology behind all of these religions, and especially behind the scriptures. This is what it all means and what it's all pointing to. And it's multiple layers deep, but it begins with the physical human anatomy, and then it extends outwardly into the actual cosmos and the astronomical sense as well. And that's why I refer to this science as astrophysiology. And I also refer to this directly as what I call metaphysiology, which is beyond just physical structure of the body and into the actual above and beyond what forms and what gives meaning to the human body and what gives structure and purpose and all of that to it. Greek epiphany literally comes from the prefix of epi, meaning above or on to, above, beyond as well, and plus phainin, meaning to show, and from Proto-Indo-European ba, meaning to shine. And so this is why Greek feign, this is the verb phainin, meaning to show, but the Greek root feign means to shine. It literally means light. It means fire, light, shine, bright, which again from Proto-Indo-European bah, meaning to shine. And so, of course, this is why the epiphanes is literally the revelation by the shining of the light. The illumination is what it is literally all about. A divine manifestation or a revelation, an illumination experience. Okay, and so... Alright guys, I'm terribly sorry, but...
The moon bull god Osiris. So we know the ancient Egyptians worshipped the sacred cow bull goddess. You see, because they understood a bull. And they hold the other symbol of the bull, which is the symbol of the staff, which comes from the sacred bull. It is the was, or the bull penis. And the bull penis is known as the ox goad, or the ox god. And of course the bull penis, or the ox goad, gives us our letter L, or the lam. And that's why the letter L, or the 1, comes from the bull penis. The ancient Sumerian god Enlil was the lord of the air, the bull of the heavens. Enlil fathered the moon god Nana, who wore the crown of the horn bull moon crescent. And the horns of Nana give us our word banana, which is in the shape of the horns or the slice of the moon. And of course, the banana is phallic in nature with the peeling of its skin. So later I'm going to explain how the fertility of the male moon god Nana came from the ancient goddess of Nana, or An, which was also known as Anu. So the king ruler god Enlil was known as the Lord of the Air, and that's exactly why the Illuminati have the symbol of the air, which is actually the symbol of the A, which is the first, the one, the Aleph, which is also known as the Alpha, as in the alpha male. And you'll notice that the Hebrew Aleph looks like the X, which is the ox, which comes from the ancient Paleo-Hebrew ox, or the bull, the A, the Aleph. So yes, our modern-day A comes from the ox, or the bull, or the god Enlil, who was the god of the air, which is the same exact symbol of the bull god Enlil, or El. And like the 11th Sephiro, or the 22 pathways of the Kabbalah, we have the 22 pathways, or the 22 symbols of the Hebrew alphabet, with the 2 sections of 11, or El even. And you'll notice that the next 11 group of numbers begins with the letter L, or the Lambda, which is the God El, and that's why it's the number 12. The Lord, or the God of the 12 hours of time, and the 12 months, or the 12 moons in a year. And the Hebrew El, or the Lamd, is the ox goad, which is the penis of the bull god El, and that's why the same symbol of the El in Hebrew is the same exact symbol of Saturn. And the fertility worship of Saturn came from the ancient fertility cults of the moon. Thus the relationship with the cow, or the bull, and the moon. So you'll notice that the starting points of both sides of the 11 start with the bull god El, or the ox. So we see the word for God is El, which is the Hebrew letter Aleph and the Lamd, or the A and the L, which is another angle of truth that El is the bull god. So we know the ancient Hebrew Bible is the ancient Bible of Cana, Phoenicia, where the Bible comes from, or where it takes its name from, which is the city of Byblos. And Byblos means the 2 bulls. And we know the god that created Byblos, or Jabel, is named Cronus, which is Saturnel. And Saturnel is the child killer, and that's exactly why the Bible's God has the child killer. Just like the old child-killing crone, the witch. And the primordial god himself, Ptah, the bull, carried the symbol of the bull, which was the sacrum of the bull spine, the Dejed. So our modern-day language, or alphabet, comes from many ancient cultures, like the Latin, the Greek, and even the Germanic languages. But we get our 26 letters, the 13 plus the 13, which is actually the 22 plus the 5 vowels, from the ancient Hebrew language, which actually comes from the ancient Cana Phoenicia language. Because almost all modern-day languages come from the ancient Cana Phoenician language, or the Semitic languages. And obviously, Phoenicia gives us our phonetic sounds. And this is exactly why we have our language, which is the El-Ang age, which comes from the Angus bull, or the cow. And if you know the true etymology of the word England, you would know that it comes from the Angland, or Angela, the Angles, which is the English. So yes, it is the English bull language. And you'll notice in the Greek alphabet, that the A and the L are both the same because it's the fire fertility of the bull penis. The A symbol is the symbol of the air. So now you understand why this symbol is called the triangle, or the tri-ang of L. And this is why the red hot fire male triangle combines with the water of the female triangle, which is known as sex, or six in Latin. Thus, the Star of David is actually the Star of Divide, or the Star of Coming Together, uniting as one. And remember, Saturn is the chaos planet of fertility, and that's exactly why it is the sixth day, or the sex day. The sixth planet and the sixth day, which is Saturday, the day of chaos, the day that we all go crazy, drink and party, and try to find a sex partner to have sex with. And of course, humans and beasts were created on the sixth day. So most people don't realize that the week begins on Monday or the moon's day, not on the Hebrew Saturn's day. You see, that's why Saturday and Sunday are considered the weekend. So let me explain to you about the weekend and the symbol of Saturn and the sun. And the star of Saturn, or the sexagram, is only showing you half of the picture because there is negative and positive, both 6 plus the 6, which is the 12, L. You see, the 6 and the 7 are exactly like the 12 and the 13. You know, at the end of the year when we celebrate God, old Saturnel, when we ritualistically celebrate the sacrifice of God's Son, which is actually just the winter solstice, the death and the rebirth of the annual sun. And the microcosm of this ritual is Saturday and Sunday, or the 6 and the 7. So the hexagram does have 6 points, but the center point, or the mid-L point, is where the sun is, just like on an astrological chart. And that's exactly why you'll see Jesus placed in the center of the star, because that is his day, Sun's day, or the seventh day. And that's exactly why on the seventh day of the week, Sunday, you will pray and worship the sun god, Jesus. And that's why the symbol also holds the secrets of 13, which is also the symbol of Jesus. So the seal of Solomon is actually the seal of Saturn, which is the seal of sex, and that's why Solomon means the sun and the moon, or the male and the female. And sex magic is behind our alphabet, which is the male alpha and the female beta. Just like the ancient Paleo-Canaanite alphabet, you'll notice the first 2 houses are the male, red, and then the next 2 houses are the blue, female. And if you look at the female reproductive system, you'll notice that it looks like a bull, which is another reason that you find the bull or the minotaur in the center or the mid-L of the labyrinth of the female, which is known as the Leviathan in the Bible. Again, a story with the... So now you'll understand why we say, holy cow.